thank you for joining us. Thank you for being present at another Digital Irish Innovation Lab. It's great to be able to have people on the US side of the Atlantic and the European side of the Atlantic to come together for these events. This particular topic tonight is funding the post-COVID-19 future. And we have a jam-packed session of people which we're going to hear from. But before I give you the rundown of who we're going to hear from this evening, I'd love if you could just take a moment, just in the chat bar, to share where you are calling from. It's always lovely to see where everybody is calling from. So just at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat icon. And if you could just type in where you are calling from, it'd be great to see it. Fantastic. So just to give you a rundown of what we're going to be experiencing tonight, we are going to open up with a conversation between Mary Pierce, who is really the person who is going to be running the show here this evening. I am merely the Zoom master. Mary has put everything together here and has orchestrated a lot of this event. So we're going to hear from her and a conversation between her and Mary McKenna in a few moments, where they'll get to speak and carry on from the last conversation that they had just before the lockdown took place for the coronavirus, where they spoke about funding the future. And if you want to see any more of that event, that talk, you can actually see it on our YouTube channel or in the In Case You Missed It section on our website as well. There's been some snippets that have been shared on social media, but you can also watch the full hour-long conversation there on our website too. And after that, we're going to hear from 3 women-led businesses which are really thriving in the post-COVID or the current COVID climate which we're currently living in. And after that, we're going to hear a conversation between Mary McKenna and Ronan Dunne, who is the Executive Vice President of Verizon. And that's going to be a very interesting conversation between the two of them. And once that is all done, we're going to move into breakout rooms, where we're going to get an opportunity for you all to network and connect with each other. And that's one of the most important points of Digital Irish and what we offer, is that you can connect with like-minded people and hopefully serve each other and break down the barriers to communication. And at the very end of the hour, we'll have an opportunity for some Q&A so that you'll be able to put forward any questions which you have from the talk at place. But before we get into today's event, I'd love to hear from and give some time to our great sponsors at Digital Irish. And the first person who I'm going to turn it over to is to Emer Friel, who's the Deputy Consulate General of Ireland in New York. So Emer, I'd love if I could pass the virtual baton on to you just to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Patrick. And virtual baton received. And it's really great to be here and to join and to see all the familiar faces that I enjoy seeing when we meet in person, and to see other people that we don't get the opportunity to do because geography can sometimes keep us apart. So I'm really glad to be here. And also just to congratulate Digital Irish. You've been at the vanguard of all of this new virtual world that we've had to find ourselves stepping into. It started in April with your first virtual event, and you've had a lot of support and advice seminars, which have been really valuable. And then again with this event today, it's really exciting. So it's a reason we're always very happy to be supporting Digital Irish, and show that there's really very real life outcomes coming from the work and the activities that this network does, and they're valuable to the Irish in New York, but not just the Irish in New York, but the global Irish completely. I'm just going to say a very quick few words on the Irish government's approach to supporting economic activity, just very high level. There's much more detail available online for anyone for whom it's relevant. You'll all be aware that there was the roadmap is in place, the 5 phases that have been put in place by the government, and the gradual reopening of the country in Ireland. There are a range of national actions that were agreed by the government, and these include a variety of new supports for the health services for workers and businesses, with an emphasis on strengthening our response and our resilience. So I suppose one of the good sources of more information about that is the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation, which has a lot of detail on its website, dbei.gov.ie. And maybe just to mention a couple of the headlines, of course, I think something Mary McKenna will come to later, Ireland's membership of the European Union is a very important part of our economic recovery, coming from where we are at the moment. The recent developments in the EU and the Eurozone will be vital ingredients in what we do. Also, that we're starting from a stronger position than we might have been maybe when we go back to previous occasions that we recall. The economy and public finances had been performing strongly in recent years. So businesses, households and the government, we are starting from a stronger position. That's not to undermine that challenge, but just to say that what we've gone through recently, and also some of the Brexit preparedness measures and the analysis that have been gone through, have been helping to inform decision making and to enhance the resilience of our public and private sector approaches to these challenges. And I suppose it's probably a slightly ironic outcome out of what we've had to deal with the Brexit challenge, now helping us out with this as well. So maybe just to mention that maintaining economic resilience is at the central priority, and that's feeding into the complementing the policy measures that are being looked at to try and strengthen our public finances and our economy. I'll leave it there. I know our economic response in Ireland will continue to be developed, particularly when we see a new government coming into office, hopefully in the near future. But let me just say once again how glad I'm here to be able to support the event today, and to highlight the value of all of the conversations that Digital Irish make happen. And I hope you really enjoy it. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Emer. Thanks for those words, and for giving us a collective update as well. And now I want to pass it over to another one of our wonderful sponsors. We're going to hear from Fiona McEntee of the McEntee Law Group, which is an immigration law firm. And Fiona was recently the recipient of the Chicago Women in Law Award. And something that I didn't even get to mention earlier to Fiona, but I wanted to say congratulations on your really wonderful book. Gavin got to share a copy of it with me, of Our American Dream. It's a children's book of the collective experiences that different people from different backgrounds have in America. It's a wonderful book. It's a book I think that would brighten your world if you were to read it, especially at a time like this. So I just wanted to extend that, but also want to pass the virtual baton over to you again, Fiona, just to share a few words with us, please.
Thanks so much, Patrick. It's great to see everybody. I'm coming to you guys from Chicago. And I think pretty troubling times in America. And I think, you know, my career as an immigration lawyer has been to promote and encourage diversity and inclusion. I was actually delighted to see the support for the Black Lives Matter in Dublin. And I think that, you know, a unifying force to really stand up and promote civil rights is so encouraging. We have been a sponsor of Digital Irish for the past few years, and we provide immigration services. Love supporting, you know, existing businesses here, but also seeing like Irish companies expand into the US. And while things are changing with regards to immigration, and you know, it is still business as usual for some types of matters, and so it is still possible to come here and to expand and like live your American dream, and just know that there's a lot of people that are here supporting you to do that. So thanks for the opportunity, and looking forward to a great session today.
Thanks, Fiona. And for anybody who's interested in the book, Fergal just posted it in the chat bar, so you can actually click that link just to learn a little bit more about it. So now we're going to move into a conversation between the two Marys, Mary Ann and Mary McKenna. And to introduce all of you to Mary McKenna, I can give you a short introduction, which I will in just a moment. But if you want a more lengthy introduction into Mary's life and her numerous accomplishments, you can hear her story on her career and her incredible life story on the most recent episode of the Digital Irish podcast, which was just released yesterday. We had the opportunity to record it just before the lockdown took place in New York. And it was, personally speaking, a true joy and a treat, filled with numerous lessons to get to hear about Mary's life and career and her perspectives on the world, which we'll all get a chance to hear from today. And just for those of you who may not know about Mary's background, she was an accountant, went on to found Learning Pool, which was an e-learning company, in 2006 before she sold it in 2014 to do more esteemed work with startups and help founders, where she is the entrepreneur in residence at Oxford University, is a judge on the EU Horizon 2020 program, the accelerator program, is an advisor to numerous governments, charity boards, is an angel investor, and just a general great supporter of people who are doing great things within the Isle of Ireland. So I'm going to pass it over to Mary Ann Pearce, who will be speaking with you for the remainder, or most of the remainder of this event. and open up the conversation between Mary Ann Pearce and Mary McKenna.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And no virtual baton for me?
No,
Please.
well, the virtual baton, I may pass it over.
So much. Yes, and thank you, Zoom Master. And welcome, everyone. We're delighted you can be here. And we took the opportunity to invite Mary back because of the very radical and disturbing situation of our last meeting on March 12th, when COVID was really just about to drop on us and we had no idea. We had prepared a very interesting conversation about funding the future, especially with a female focus and a sustainability focus. And then 3 months later, we decided maybe we should have that conversation again, looking at COVID as an accelerant. COVID has disrupted so many industries, education, retail, the event industries, all saying. And also just to also echo Fiona's statement about the support for Black Lives Matters in Dublin and throughout the world. Please pray for America. It's also accelerated some of our civil rights issues, our civil rights issue. That's the main issue here. And I just would like to just keep the thought in your mind, be like the police chief of Houston when he said to the protesters, "I'll walk with you." So let's please all walk with us in America that we do better. So just wanted to say at the top of the hour. So Mary, every time we meet, there's something really horrible looming, except, when we meet, in Dublin. But tell us what really has gone on from your point of view, from the European Innovation Council, and how Europe, especially President Ursula von der Leyen, I hope I said it right, how she has been responding.
Well, if you haven't checked out Ursula, it's probably a good idea to do so as European citizens. She's a very, very interesting woman. So she took over as the first female president of the EU on the 1st of December last year. And she brought to the table her own agenda, which was certainly around the European Green Deal, which is a huge, huge issue for all of us in Europe. But she also had an agenda of increasing the digitalization of Europe, so making businesses and commerce more digital, but also linking those two things in the way that smart cities and the circular economy and everything else like that works. Is a big target. And the other thing that she had on her list was increasing the visibility and the support offered to female founders. And so, as both you and Patrick have said, one of my day jobs is that I work as part of the Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe as it's now known, and I particularly work on the EIC Accelerator, which is a funding program that brings both grant funding from €500,000 to €2.5 million, and now since last year an option of applying for up to 15 million in equity as well, to European SMEs that really are at the leading or bleeding edge of innovation, who've got a great idea and who just need that bit of an extra push in terms of a financial injection to really help them scale and help them internationalize their operations. So it's a great project to be part of. And 5 days ago, so already they had a big program for this year, which includes a call for the Green Deal, which will be coming to interview at the end of this month. And there is €303 million to be spent on that particular round. The budget for this year for EIC Accelerator was €819 million, so it's a lot of money. But what they have announced last week is a repair and prepare for the next generation recovery plan, which is a proposal at stage. But the proposal is for a whopping €750 billion, which the EU is going to go out and borrow from the financial markets, and they're going to use that as a recovery proposal to try and get Europe up and running again after the COVID outbreak. And a new recovery instrument has been announced, which is called the Next Generation EU. And so added to the Green Deal and the digitalisation and the female interest, she has now also included a pot of money for resilience. And of that 750 billion, around 95 of that is going to be money that's going to be added into the Horizon 2020 program. So clearly Europe believes that the way to get out of the situation that we find ourselves in is by investing in innovation and investing in cities, towns, rural areas that are fit for purpose in the future.
It's really extraordinary. This was just announced on May 27th, and it's going to be $1.8 trillion collectively with other budgets. So this is where real leadership and real investing in funding the future. Now, I read through the document briefly, and one of the things that we spoke about the last time is what is going to be funded, for what governments are going to be, not just Europe, but other governments, where are they going to be funding? So besides, Green Deal, what does that mean? Well, we go by this nomenclature called DRAKE, deep tech, machine learning, all that really incredible stuff. Let's put healthcare in there too, because healthcare, as far as getting a virus and really responding to that. Then the R in that is renewable energy, and GRA, agriculture. Agriculture is the largest polluter on the earth, as well as there's going to be famine for various reasons. I mean, it's going to happen. And then there's transportation, because obviously our infrastructure, we need to really think differently, especially here in New York City. And then education, how it's been disrupted. So if you're looking for a job and you're a young person, and if you're looking to be part of the future, start looking in these directions. I wouldn't necessarily go into financial services or advertising at this time. If you want to, that's fine. But if you really want to start building the future, this is where you should jump, because you've already been pushed into the future. So once again, COVID as an accelerator. So that's what we wanted to talk about. We're going to go on now, I think, to our pitches, because there's plenty more. We can bring up some topics a little bit later, but we just want to let you know that there is money. And if you're a European startup, please read these documents and please apply. And maybe you'll stand up in front of Mary McKenna pitching sometime soon, which would be great. So we've asked 3 Irish female founders who happen to all represent some aspect of Drake. And both Mary and I mentor them, and also Mary is starting, she'll probably mention this a little bit later, a women's entrepreneurial network for the Northeast area of Ireland. So that's exciting news.
Or even the Northwest, Marianne.
Oh, Northwest. I'm so sorry. I'm an East Coast girl, so I just don't know my directions. Anyway, thank you. Let's just say Donegal area, okay? So that's wonderful. So Mary, do you want to introduce the first company?
I would love to, because the first person, I'm very, very proud to have 3 Irish female entrepreneurs with us this evening. The first is Edelle McDaid, and Edelle, along with her husband, is creating a very, very interesting circular economy, clean tech, agri-tech company right up there at the top of Ireland. So take it away, Edelle.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. So my name is Edelle McDaid, and I'm the founder of Inishowen Algae. I am from Inishowen, Donegal, which is about 8 miles from Mallinhead, which is Ireland's most northerly point. So yes, we're right up the very, very tip top. And I'm here today to talk to you guys about algae. So this is algae, beautiful. But you've probably seen it growing in your pond, or growing in a pond, or growing in your pool. But these little algae cells can actually capture more CO2 per acre than trees. So what exactly is the problem that we're trying to solve? There's 2 main problems here. The agricultural sector in Ireland is really, really struggling. It's non-profitable. There's a high reliance on subsidies. And sadly, the most successful farmers in Ireland are the ones that are losing the least amount of money. There's just no revenue for the farmers. The second problem is the carbon emissions. So the agriculture sector is responsible for 33% of Ireland's CO2 emissions, compared with the rest of Europe at about 10%. So Ireland has laid out a pretty ambitious climate action plan for 2030, and it isn't looking favourable for farmers, because basically they're focusing on reducing the herd in order to meet the targets. So our solution, we've developed a self-harvesting closed loop algae farm to grow algae, and then a mobile app to monitor it. So how we're going to tackle the two problems that I mentioned is we're going to create a new revenue stream for farmers so they can straight up grow the algae and sell it. There's markets in pharmaceuticals, chemical industry, cosmetics, and health food. Maybe you guys have a little bit of spirulina in your smoothie. There's markets there. They could simply grow the algae for the purpose of sequestering carbon and generate revenue through collecting carbon tax credits. They could also use the algae to produce animal fodder, replacing, so right now in Ireland, there's a high reliance on soy. They use soybeans to produce the animal fodder, and that is imported from Brazil, and it has a high carbon footprint, and right now it has a very high price attached on an already struggling sector. But most interestingly, I think they could combine the algae growth with the microbiodigestor or a gasifier and produce their own energy. So once they have the electricity, heat, they can sell it to the grid, they can use it to power their own farms, or they could use it their homes, or they could use it to grow food in polytunnels. Well, really, once they have produced the electricity, the limits are really only your imagination then as to what you can use that electricity for the farmers themselves and for people willing to purchase that electricity. So if you look at your screens as a brief overview of the system, I thought it might be a little bit easier if you could see it. So you'll see a bunch of polytunnels there. So these is freshwater tubes with algae growing inside them, and they lay on top of the land. So there's no impact on the land itself, and the land doesn't have to be particularly good land for anything else for use on the farm. The tubes are just going to sit on top of it. There's also controllers and sensors inside the tubes, which are all fed back to the database and fed back to our mobile app. So you can see on the screen there just a brief screenshot of the mobile app, where the farmers are getting real-time information of how their farm is performing, any alerts that they need to look at, and exactly what's happening at any one time. So farming is a part of Ireland's heritage. Farmers are passionate about farming, and they farm at a loss because the land is so important to them. Our aim is to bring about a revolution in the Irish agricultural sector with innovation and imagination, so that the farming industry can be a major part of the solution to climate change and not part of the problem. This is a business to us, but this is much, much more. This is a social enterprise. We have 3 stinking cute little boys under 5, and we need to do what we can to combat climate change to ensure they have a future. With this system, we feel we can diversify the struggling sector, agricultural sector, all while tackling climate change head on. That's everything. I'd like to open for questions if anyone has any.
We're going to take questions later, Edelle. That was absolutely magnificent. So you hit 2 drakes, you know, with agriculture and renewable energy, and a circular and a new hope for Ireland's agricultural sector. Now, we say in Digital Irish, what is your ask? What are you asking our network?
So we have accessed some local grants to get this idea off the ground, to get a pilot in the early stages up and running. We're now ready to raise funding and are seeking investors who have a background in any of the areas mentioned.
That's excellent. And we'll make sure that when we have our Q&A, anyone can join in or ask Edelle or provide some information, please do. Please write in the chat. So our next company really came through Mary McKenna, who asked me to get involved with the Starticus a contest that happened in Derry for female entrepreneurs. And Lawlor won that contest, and Alistair said, well, Mary Ann Pierce will be your mentor. And we've had a number of sessions, and it's been really delightful to get to know Anne and her product that really is going to address some of the major critical issues in the transportation. As you know, transportation has been disrupted because of COVID. And there is also some other things that have to happen besides just cargo, which Anne will tell us about. And also it has been accelerated her business, the indication for her business because of COVID. So Anne, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Mary Ann, for that introduction. Sorry about being so
All
blind.
Right. Just keep to time. Thank you.
My name is Anne Lawlor, and as Mary Ann said, I'm CEO and founder of Journey Protector. We've developed basically a black box for the transportation industry. Just last year, 39 people lost their lives in the rear of a truck in the UK. They died as a direct result of the driver and haulage company engaging in people trafficking. Had our system been installed, they'd be alive today. They'd never have left Belgium. But that's not the only problem being faced by this industry. It's ripe for disruption. They're losing £70 billion a year due to cargo theft. And add that to the 5 million per day that they're losing due to the migrant crisis. They're crying out for a solution, and we have provided a solution for these and other issues. We've developed hardware which has 12 sensors in it, and it continuously monitors the conditions in the rear of the vehicle. All the data is sent to the cloud, where our rules engine will generate an alert should one be required. This eliminates the threat of human error. We also have a dashboard which our customers can view. They can check all the conditions within the rear of the vehicle, and an auditable log of all events which can be used in case of legal cases. This proves innocence or guilt with regard to people trafficking, etc. And this is why we prevent the driver and vehicle owner from colluding in any such activities. We feel it's really important. This is the time now for disruption, and with COVID-19, it has never been more important. The indiscriminate movement of people has to stop, and if you stop that, you will stop the spread of COVID. We have received mentorship from wonderful people like Mary Ann. Vodafone have assisted us. We're part of the Microsoft for Startups program. And we have received various awards, but this isn't why our customers want to use us. They want to use us because there is nothing out there. We feel that it's time to move away from people and move toward machine learning. We strongly believe in tech for good, and we feel this is the future for the transportation industry. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you, what's your ask?
Well, we were hoping that somebody in the digital Irish community could help us with raising investment. We're just about to raise our seed round, and introductions to government agencies and future customers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Mary, the next introduction is yours.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Okay, so next up is Jennifer Neff, who's one of the co-founders of Elemental Software. And Jennifer ticks all my boxes: female founders, tech for good, and something that I could add value to, which is why I was the first person to put my own money into their business. So Jennifer, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Mary, and thanks everyone for the opportunity. So yeah, I'm Jennifer Neff, one of two co-founders of Elemental, based here in Derry, Londonderry, or Legendary, as it's often been called. We're a tech for good company, and Leanne and I set Elemental up because we were really frustrated with health inequalities. Derry, as many of you will know, has lots of different socially deprived areas. Child poverty is really high, unemployment is really high, and in some parts of Derry, depending on where you live, you could actually die 15 years before someone else. So when Leanne and I first met 7 years ago, we said, that's just not right. We need to do something about this. One of the main things is that Leanne and I aren't techies, but our backgrounds in community development enabled us to look really, really easily to say, It's about simply connecting people into their own communities. We understood the social determinants of health. We understood that debt, housing, bereavement, social welfare, legal advice were all things that really enabled or disabled people to be able to get involved in health and well-being, looking after themselves, looking after their mental health, looking after their physical health. So Leanne and I said, let's do something about that. We didn't realize at the time that it was called social prescribing, but since then we've looked and we've seen it's a massive movement. It's a more than medicine movement that's taken place across the world. So we took our idea, we pitched it, we got ourselves ready with our t-shirts and our videos and pitched our idea 7 years ago this September actually. We didn't win the pitch competition, but the person who won actually came up to us afterwards and said, your idea is better than mine. I'm going to give you the £500 prize money. So Leanne and I got started on £500. Fast forward 7 years later, we are now used across the NHS. We're used by housing associations, councils, BCSE organisations. Our software has been used in prisons, and it's all about better connecting people into their communities. Mary McKenna was someone that we had our sights on for a while. We said, we want Mary to mentor us. So we had to pitch to Mary, and Mary said, I'll have a think about it. Thanks be to goodness, Mary came back and says yes, and her help has been so beneficial to us as an organisation. She helped us go and find the investment funding that we needed to grow our business. So where are we at with COVID? Derry really took a stance quite early on to close all the bars and restaurants. We're a caring, we're a creative community, and we said, let's look after our people. Elemental was the same. So we said to our staff, work remotely from home, do whatever you need to do, we'll support you. We put on a corporate wellness program. We had yoga there today. So we're looking after everybody. We were afraid that we'd maybe the business would slow down, but what we found, it's actually accelerated. The biggest contract we ever signed, we signed in March there with a customer that's really helped, and another 8 contracts we signed as well. We're growing our team. We have 3 people who joined us during COVID. We have another 3 jobs out there at the moment. Things are just, it's proven that Elemental is more of a need than ever in terms of community health and well-being, and we're so proud of that, and we're so proud of the mentoring support that we received from Mary and all people that have helped us. So yeah, we're flying the flag for Derry, we're flying the flag for Women in Tech, we're flying the flag for people who weren't head boy or head girl in their schools, and we're just delighted to be able to share our story with you today.
Well done, Jennifer. We love your flags, and we're going to ask you, what's your ask to the Digital Irish community?
So our ask is that we've really grown really well here in the UK and Ireland, and we're ready now to kind of make the step and start looking abroad and looking specifically at the US market. If I've sparked an interest tonight on health inequalities, social prescribing, community health and well-being, mental health, what my ask is, I'd just love a conversation with someone just to be further explore, you know, what the opportunities are around mental health, because we are seeing that mental health in particular is the next pandemic, and we would love your help and tap into the network to be able to support us to explore what's possible for Elemental in the States.
Well, thank you. And everyone has any tips, please put them in the chat, and we'll make sure that they get forwarded to Jennifer and to all of our entrepreneurs. And that ends our entrepreneur section. And now I have the great honor to introduce the next presenter, our special guest, Rowan Dunn. Rowan Dunn is Executive Vice President and CEO of Verizon Consumer Group. He is responsible for 5G. And he's a great advocate of young people and getting more purposeful jobs. And so he's been a chancellor for One Young World for many years. One Young World is described as the Davos for under 25-year-olds. And it basically has, I think, 128 countries come together, more than the Olympics, or about the same as the Olympics. And now there are challenges to go virtual. So, but the mission still goes on, and the mentorship still goes on. So without further ado, I would like to invite Rowan Dunn to join Mary McKenna in a conversation. There he is.
Thank you, Marianne, for the introduction, and great to join you and Mary. And if I can just say, as I joined, I was lucky enough to be able to hear the pitches. And while I don't promise anything, I think for both Anne at Journey Protector and for Jennifer at Elemental, I may be able to make some introductions that might be helpful.
That's great news, Ronan. Thank you very much. And lovely to see you joining us this evening. But I am aware that your time with us is extremely short. Can I kick off with a question for you? Maybe if you were 25 years old today, what would you be looking for in your career? Where would you go? What would you be heading to do?
What's interesting, I was lucky enough to be interviewed by Accountancy Ireland last month, and we just actually published an article on leadership today. And with everything that's going on in the United States at the moment, not just COVID-19, but the tragic scenes we see on the streets every day, is, you know, the one thing that there is a real shortage of is leadership. And so the one thing I would say to any 25-year-old is that you should be looking for an environment in which leadership happens at every level of the organization you want to join or participate in. Because the real big insight over the last few years is this switch from a traditional sense of human capital to social capital, and the idea that you should put yourself in the place where your talent can be best matched to the opportunity that's there. Those who have heard me speak before will know that I'm always talking about matching talent to opportunity, because talent is very broadly distributed. It's just opportunity that isn't, whether that be because of lack of social inclusion, whether it be racism, whether it be any of the issues we find. But I think technology, and one of my biases is 5G, is I honestly think technology has a genuine role to play in leveling the accessibility playing field, and then to allow young people, old people, anyone, is to go after where their energy really is. Too many of us have been defined by an analog view of the world, whether it be respectfully analog parents, whether it be analog role models, whether it be the education system. The truth is, the average 25 or 6-year-old is a digital native. They're digitally literate and they're capable of accessing technology, but not for tech's sake, Mary. It's for the sake of creating the experiences, creating the outcomes where they harness the tech and they decide how the outcome is, rather than be harnessed by the tech. So long-winded, but lean in, make sure you can find a spot with purpose and make the tech work for you, not the other way around.
Yeah, so I would also add to that. I mean, you know my own stance on the parents, Ronan. I would say that in terms of careers, parents are the enemies. Young people, don't listen to your parents. Don't do what they ask you to do, because it's
Mary,
probably not what you
now,
should.
I'm afraid. Oh, now it's back.
You hear me?
Yes.
So as you know, I would say the parents are the enemy in the nicest possible way. One of the things that I think maybe young people should do more of, though, is really do what you've just described there. Go and seek out where the matching opportunity for them is, instead of just sort of replying to job adverts and things like that. Really, that's what I would change if I had my time over again. I would drive that career path far more myself by seeking out the opportunities that were a good match for me, and then figuring out through networking or whatever how to have those conversations with people, because I think that's an important part of that.
Completely. And Mary, just to build on that, is when I was running O2 in the UK, I did a piece of research just as we came out of the last recession. And what was interesting was the average person, young person, who was not in education or training, what's described as NEETs, terrible expression, but that's the definition, had a higher level of digital literacy than the average person in the workplace. And the challenge that I think many young people are finding is there aren't natural entry routes into a lot of structured organizations, because for example, I'm a qualified chartered accountant, but I didn't go to university. I studied, I went to work and studied that way. My first job was flipping hamburgers in McDonald's. I now have the privilege of leading the largest wireless company in the world. You know, there are different ways in, but you have to knock on the door. You have to take a different approach. And the one thing I would say to every young person, and it's not a trite thing to say, is you have talents and skills that are underrepresented in both the workplace and in the opportunity set that's out there. So be confident in what you have and be clear about what you bring. And you may well be surprised what doors can be opened. And if you have time on your hands with the lockdown at the moment, get out there, networking. You know, Mary's the world's expert in networking, but honestly, get out there. I've taken the opportunity every day during the lockdown to reach out to 5 people I haven't been talking to recently to reacquaint myself.
I love this, Ronan. We talked about this the other day. This is great.
Everyone can do this. Don't be shy. And guess what? There's people like me who will see somebody on LinkedIn or somewhere else and say, of course I'll take that 15 minutes and we'll do a chat. Or of course I'll give you the opportunity of some of my experience. Don't be afraid to ask.
So can I ask you a follow-on question from that? How should the average person approach somebody like you? What's the best way for them to do that, Ronan? Is there a good way or is there a bad way?
Well, look, and I know people will have perceptions about the certain age profiles of certain social media platforms and other things. But I do think if it's a business purpose in the broadest sense, I think personally, LinkedIn is the most consistently legitimate in the quality and the coverage and access out there.
But you must get a phenomenal amount of messages on LinkedIn, do you?
I do, but I have a rule, and I may not be the same as everyone, but every customer who writes to me, and we have 130 million that I serve in the US, but every customer that writes to me, I read every single communication. Every message that's sent to me on any one of the social platforms, I read. It may be appropriate one of my colleagues responds because it's a technical issue or it's an account issue, but where it's about me, I always respond. And 2 things I would say to you is, don't just ask to link in on LinkedIn. Send me the 2 lines which says, this is why, this is what I'm thinking about, this is who I am, this is what I'm interested in, rather than one of these trite, we have mutual friends, why don't we connect? And then, greatest respect, I have 350,000 people who follow me on LinkedIn. It's not about connecting in that sense. It's about, I've got an ask, I've got a perspective, I've got a viewpoint, I've got a something. My job is always to bring the outside into our organization. And honestly, I'm not getting that from 50 and 60-year-olds. I'm getting it from young people. It's why when Marianne talked about One Young World, it's a fabulous opportunity for me to be energized every year, because I'm confident that the generation that's coming through is a lot smarter, more capable, more liberal, more open, and more committed to our society than the one I represent.
So before we lose you, you and I discussed on Friday that we had a little bit of a call to action around young people and perhaps the Global Irish Network, the diaspora, and some ideas that we had around virtual internships and what we think needs to happen there. So
let's make the call out, and then Mary and I will carry the banner. We as an organization here in the US, rather than cancel our internships for the year, have gone completely virtual. But Ireland has one of the most amazing networks. We have Global Irish Economic Forum, and we have Global Irish Network, we have IIBN, we have Digital Irish, we have a series of them. So the ask would be that why don't we, as people inside that community, provide the opportunity, maybe it's transition year, maybe it's other students, to say, during this time where you have maybe less opportunities than previously, rather than having to chase Ronan on LinkedIn, maybe Ronan can come to you along with other leaders in different fields and give some insight, give some perspective, and the opportunity for some Q&A. And maybe what we can have is a virtual program that maybe runs over the summer, where we have a couple of hours a week where we can open out that conversation and maybe share some of those insights, some learnings, and help to answer some of those questions of, well, what could I do? or what should I do in these situations. You know, I'm blessed that I've had the opportunity to work around the world, and for 35 years I've been getting away with it. So I'm very happy to share some of those tricks and techniques, but I'd love to be able to do that with other leaders from sport, from industry, from politics, from civil society, and maybe we can build a program together, and maybe our Minister Cannon, who is responsible for the global diaspora, maybe he can help us in that regard.
That's maybe a really good place for us to wrap up. And I suppose I would say that one of my takeaways from what's happened over the past 3 months is I think that it really has opened everyone's eyes that they can look much further for their talent pools, and the other way around, people that have talents. You can work anywhere in the world. You know, you can be sitting here in Donegal, but you can be working for somebody in New York City and beyond. So
absolutely, the opportunity now with virtual is so much bigger than it has been. And I would say to you, the best American companies, big or small, do look to Europe for talent and continue to look there. So the opportunities, the relationships potential has always been there. Now the ability to work remotely probably expands that opportunity greatly. So we need to match talent to opportunity. Mary, you and I and Marianne, we will continue to focus on doing that. And I look forward to a few interesting connections on LinkedIn as a result. And I apologize, but I do have to run because I'm going live in 4 minutes to our leadership team here in Verizon. So thank you for the invite, the best of luck, and to both Anne and to Jennifer. I'll work through Mary, but very happy to connect and see if I can't introduce you to some people respectively in the telematics and transport space, and also into the wider health well-being space here in the US.
Thank you so much for your time, Ronan. It was so good to see you in New York, and I will look forward to the next time.
Thank you. Cheerio, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you much.
Wow, he's always good value.
Yes, he is. And he's always very generous with his time. So we really
Amazing.
appreciate it that he would come on. And that was wonderful. And Mary, the two of you together, I mean, you should run a small country or maybe a large country.
Maybe we'll start doing sort of, you know, digital coffee with people once a month. I'll ask him if he's interested.
Yeah, well, keep Digital Irish in the loop here, because this is very much a continuation of the good work that Gavin and Fergal do with the J1s. So we can
absolutely, which is exactly what Ronan and I were talking about the other day. Right. In that if those people aren't able to physically travel, we need to find a substitute. Mm-hmm.
Great, and we have a great Irish diaspora network, international network, and we should really work it that way to place those maybe digital internships to get people started, like to maybe go outside their comfort zone or get started in especially the new fields that we were talking about. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. Here's the virtual baton to Patrick, and we're going to go into our breakout sessions.
Thank you very much, Marianne. I welcome that over. So based on that conversation, I think something that Ronan spoke of at the beginning, which was quite interesting, was the lack of leadership that he sees, that he mentioned across industry and politics. And I think maybe to brighten that topic, because it is something that we can probably all, or we probably all have collectively experienced in some shape or format, is to discuss either an organization or institution or an individual of leadership which we are admiring at this moment in time. Whether it is, say, for example, a brand like Nike, who came out with a captivating ad campaign, or possibly an individual who has inspired us during this time. But to share something of somebody in the role of leadership, be it an organization or an institution or an individual that is inspiring us at this moment in time. And we're going to move into some breakout sessions where we can have this discussion. So I will ask you if you could turn on your video camera as we move into it, so that you can interact with each other and see each other. So once again, we're just talking about leadership that is inspiring you at this moment in time, be it an individual or an organization or institution. And after that, we'll all get a chance to see the feedback which we have shared with each other. So we're going to move into that for 5 minutes, and afterwards we'll come out to a Q&A. So stay with us, and I look forward to seeing you in a few moments. Okay, so now that we're back all together, if you could just take a moment just in the chat bar to share who you had expressed and shared with your group. It would be so wonderful if we could all feed off each other and see the leaders that we all shared collectively. These are fantastic. It's great to see such a diverse collection of inputs coming in from everybody. And for the last few minutes while we have this here together, if you have a question which you would like to share, just please leave in the comments, I have a question, and I will announce you, and you can unmute yourself just to share your question. We have about 5 minutes left together, and this is a chance to put forward any questions to Mary McKenna or 3 of the startups which presented today. Mary McKenna, do you have any suggestions from what we've spoken about so far, from the conversations that you had with Ronan? You're obviously collectively involved quite frequently in building communities and strengthening the connections that people have within the Irish community around the world.
I do think, thank you, Patrick. I do think this is something hopefully for the Irish government to pick up as a call to action. So I would like for maybe Digital Irish to present this as an idea to the Minister for the Diaspora, and maybe that's something that ICYMI could help us with. If people like Ronan are willing to open their black books to help young people in transition year in Ireland, or young people that are looking for international opportunities, and do something in terms of like a virtual internship program, then we should probably be jumping all over that.
And there was a very interesting point just made there by Maureen O'Rourke about an overfocus on Gen Yers and Gen Zers to the exclusion of Gen Xers, who were just as valuable in this part of the community. So I value that. So thank you for sharing that as a diverse opinion to what was discussed earlier today. And this is very much so part of what the community is about. You know, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what your thoughts and your inputs are. The content that we produce here and the speakers that we have is about how we can feed into the collective paradigm of what's happening, and how we can help people within the global Irish community, people who are at the beginning of their careers, people who were in the middle of their careers, potentially transitioning to other stages of their careers. So Gavin put forward our email, hello@digitalirish.com. You can reach out to myself, Mary Ann Pearce, Gavin McMahon, Fergal Kenny. We would love to hear from you. We have a podcast, we have this Innovation Lab event. It's very much so, as when Fergal started this, about breaking down the barriers to communication so that we can all connect with each other and share these concepts, and hopefully feed off each other and grow this community so that we can be supportive of one another by having individuals like Ronan Dunne or anybody else who you may suggest to speak or to present as a speaker here today or be on the podcast. We also are always fielding individuals to have on the podcast, established founders and entrepreneurs, but also smaller founders and entrepreneurs, people who are building their businesses. So we always want to be feeding from your suggestions and inputs, and we welcome those. And you can reach out to us directly or at hello@digitalirish.com. And Mary Ann, always very prudent and wonderful to finish on time. So I'm going to pass it over to you now that we're at the top of the hour.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for participating. These innovation labs are really kind of geared to be like design thinking. We're not quite there yet, but we obviously came very quickly to a prototype with the call to action with Mary and Rowan. Now we have to put the steps together, but guarantee we will have our thinking caps on, and we want you to share your thoughts, and for upcoming programs, and for things that you would like to have us discuss. Our next program is going to be on the 12th at 10 o'clock with our dear friend Kelly Hoey, who's going to teach us how to network. So please join us then, and watch your social media and watch the emails that will be coming out. So have a good day, stay safe, and be well. Thank you so much.